Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be taking a look at Zohran Mamdani. He is the political candidate for New York City mayor. He is a hardcore democratic socialist, and he just got some crazy things about him. So without further ado, let's take a look. Before we get started today, just got a couple quick announcements for you guys. We are doing Spotlight Saturday every Saturday, so drop a comment down below to be featured in that. We'd love to feature you guys in that. We're doing a positive comment and then a negative comment. We're also working on doing something called Scripture Sunday, where I read my favorite piece of scripture that I read this week, and that'll be a lot of fun. So our first source is Britannica. I use this a lot in history class. It's a really good history source. It's made by college scholars and all that. Absolutely love this source. It's very, very reliable. So we're going to take a look at what this has to say about Zohran Mamdani. He was born October 18th, 1991 in Uganda. He's a member of the New York State Assembly and the Democratic nominee in the 2025 race for New York City mayor. He gave us a little bit of background knowledge about him, but let's look at his campaign website. This is very, very interesting. To start off with, as soon as you open the website, it says Zohran Mamdani is running for mayor to lower the cost of living for working class New Yorkers. And he's really hit home. He just had a rally a couple days ago. His election day is November 4th, which is coming up pretty quick. So one of his campaign sayings is that this campaign is for every person who believes in the dignity of their neighbors and that the government's job is to actually make our lives better. So let's take a look at this 1 minute and 40-second video of his full campaign running.
New York Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury.
Every politician says New York is the
greatest city on the globe.
But what good is that if no one can afford to live here? City Hall is engulfed in corruption.
Unscientific report.
The cost of living is the real crisis. New Yorkers are being crushed by rent and childcare. The slowest buses in the nation are robbing us of our time and our sanity. Working people are being pushed out of the city they built. A mayor could change this, and that's why I'm running. I'll make buses fast and free.
So I can just get where I'm going.
I'll make childcare available to all New Yorkers at no cost.
I want to raise my kid in New York.
And I'll freeze the rent for every single rent-stabilized tenant.
These Eric Adams rent hikes are killing us.
Life in this city doesn't need to be this hard. But politicians like Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo want it to be this way. They care about their donors. They care about themselves. They don't care about you, the working class who keep this city running. This campaign is for every New Yorker who believes in the dignity of their neighbors. And the government's job is to actually make our lives better. We can afford to bring down the rent, have world-class public transit, and make it easier to raise a family. We can do all of that and so much more, because this is New York. We can afford to dream.
So in that clip that we just saw, he's talking about how he wants to lower rent, make childcare completely free. That's interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen that from a political candidate in my lifetime, but I've only been into politics for about a year now. On his campaign website, it says, Meet Zohran. He is a New York State Assembly member and Democratic Socialist running for mayor. Born in Uganda and raised in New York City, he has fought for the working class in and outside the legislature, hunger striking alongside taxi drivers to achieve more than $450 million to transformative debt relief, winning over $100 million in the state budget for increased subway service and a multi-fare free bus pilot, and organizing New Yorkers to defeat a proposed dirty power plant. The cost of living is crushing working people, but Zohran believes that government can lower costs and make life easier in our city. He'll use every tool available to bring down the rent, create world-class public transit, and make it easier to raise a family. So this is actually a way, because all that sounds amazing, right? We're gonna make it easier to start a family. We're gonna make it easier to have childcare. We're gonna make it easier to have public transportation, and that's a big thing in New York City, is public transportation. So with the election day closing in on Zohran, he had like a big rally event we'll take a look at later. But before we get to that, the platform, New York is too expensive. Zohran will lower costs and make life easier. He's going to freeze the rent. Fast, fare, free buses. The Department of Community Safety. No cost childcare. City-owned grocery stores. Seeing that in Venezuela. They're poor. Housing by and for New York. Cracking down on bad landlords. Taxes on big corporations and the wealthiest New Yorkers. And then read Zohran. Yeah, we aren't going to do that. But before we jump to the next thing, I wanted to take a look at who's funding all this. We got Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Congressman Jerry Nadler, and a whole bunch of other people of the Senate and Congress. But he's also funded by New York Working Families Party. He's funded by New York City Democrat Socialists of America. Also funded by Jewish Voice for Peace Action, the Jewish Vote, Jim Owl's Liberal Democratic Club, and many, many more. But we just saw a couple minutes ago that he's a democratic socialist. So I think that we should take an instance where socialism has worked. I forgot. It doesn't exist. And just to prove this, the Cornell Review, which is a news media website, real socialism has been tried and it has failed every single time. Goes on to say, over the past 100 years or so, socialist experiments around the world have unleashed a vast wide of tyranny, starvation, and mass murder on a scale never seen before in human history. Socialism was implemented in the Soviet Union, East Germany, Hungary, China, Venezuela, and many other places. In every one of these instances, it has failed. Its demonstrated record of producing evils, however, the spirit of socialism is very much alive today, even in the United States. Socialists are fond of saying that socialism has not failed because real socialism has never been tried. And in the eyes of today's democratic socialists, the earlier socialist leaders failed because they were authoritarian socialists who believed in strictly heretical, top-down bureaucracy, socialism's noble ideals. If instead our socialist government is led by public-spirited people whose beliefs are rooted in democratic principles, then we will achieve real socialism and all will be well. The problem, they argue, has never been the socialist horse, but the jockeys who rode it along astray. This couldn't be farther from the truth. When today's socialists talk about building a non-authoritarian socialist government rooted in the democratic and humanitarian principles, they are far from original. In fact, this has always been that the earlier socialists said that they would achieve. Socialist movements emerged primarily as a reaction to the humane working conditions and yawning wealth disparities in industrialized Europe. Empowering working class people and ensuring a more equitable distribution of goods and service has always been among many honorable objectives of socialist leaders. Socialist regimes have always ended in varying degrees of totalitarianism, to be sure, but there is no denying that earlier socialist leaders, just like today's, generally started with good intentions, which we see heavily in Zohran's run for mayor, where he's like, I'm a democratic socialist, and we're gonna distribute the profits to the working class people, and we're gonna make childcare free, and it's gonna be easier than ever to start a family. But there's this clip, and I think that you guys might have seen it before, but it's this guy, and he goes around to college campuses, and he asks, should we have capitalism or socialism? And almost every single time they answer socialism, and then he asks them if they want to average out their GPA, and this is kind of what a socialist society would look like. So yeah, let's take a look at this.
Would you rather have in America, socialism or capitalism?
I would say socialism.
I favor that over capitalism.
I also think I favor that.
Like, I have family in Europe. They go to college for free. Their healthcare is paid for. They don't have to worry about it at all.
So on campus, if there's a GPA disparity where there's people at the bottom with a poor GPA, would you support a policy where people at the top spread the wealth and give that GPA to people at the bottom?
I've lost a lot of sleep, so I don't know if I will be fair.
But it's about being fair, right? We got to help people at the bottom.
I'm all for helping. I wouldn't give like, oh, let me just give you some of my points.
That's completely different.
How's it different?
Because I'm like studying all day for my grade.
I would want to say no, straight up.
Well, I mean, then there would be no point to having a GPA, because then if everyone has the same, then there's no metric, right?
But it's all about fairness, right?
I mean, I sacrifice a lot to get my GPA, so no, I wouldn't sacrifice my own things.
I guess it would be kind of hypocritical for me to say no.
There we can see every single person who answered with the answer of socialism did not want to average out the GPA so that everybody would have a fair grade, because socialism is all about fairness. Before we end off today, I wanted to take a look at his final rally. That was really the go hard, go get 'em before the election. So let's take a look at this.
If you will knock a door, turn your flashlight on. New York, our work has only just begun. On November 4th, we set ourselves free. Thank you. As we stand on the precipice of taking this city back from corrupt politicians and the billionaires that fund them, let our words ring out so loud tonight that Andrew Cuomo can hear them in his $8,000 a month apartment. Let them ring so loud so that he can hear us even if he's in Westchester this evening. Let them ring so loud that his puppet master in the White House hears us. New York is not for sale.
Here we can see AOC and Bernie Sanders both holding hands with Zohar in a final attempt at the go get 'em.
And we will send a loud message to President Donald Trump that his authoritarianism is no good here.
At a moment when Americans are extremely distressed about where we are as a nation, economically and politically, a victory here in New York will give hope and inspiration to people throughout our country and throughout the world. Ordinary people, working class people, black and white and Latino, Asian, gay and straight, coming together to take on the oligarchy. That is Trump's worst nightmare.
That was Zohar's final hoorah before the election, trying to persuade as many people as he can to vote, like any political candidate. Off the video, we're going to take a look at Venezuela. This is a socialist country that has fallen very into poverty, fallen very into starvation, and it's not a good place to live, and it's under a socialist reign. As we learned earlier, socialism has worked absolutely nowhere. Let's take a look. In the 1950s, Venezuela was the fourth wealthiest country in the world. Today, Venezuela is poorer than it was prior to the 1920s. Its economy has been shrinking since the turn of the century. Hyperinflation has left the currency worthless and made it almost impossible for Venezuelans to afford basic necessities. Millions have fled this country in hospitable conditions. How did that country go from having a GPD on par with that of the United States, New Zealand, and Switzerland to having almost 90% of the population living in poverty? The article goes on to say, in what was once Latin America's wealthiest nation, now over 75% of Venezuelans are living in extreme poverty, according to the September 2021 report from the National Survey of Living Conditions created in 2014 to make up for the absence of the official data. The percentage of Venezuelans living in extreme poverty rose from 67.7 to 76.6. This is a reversal from the improvement in previous years after the government started cash transfers and relaxed price controls. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, the UN World Food Program estimated 1/3 of Venezuelans struggled to get enough food to meet minimum nutritional requirements. On to say, the U.S. Department announced in September 21 it was sending $247 million in humanitarian assistance and $89 million in economic and development assistance aid to aid Venezuelans in their home country and Venezuelan refugees, migrants, and their host communities in the region. In addition to $120 million from the State Department's Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, and $216 million through the U.S. Agency for International Development, bringing total U.S. humanitarian, economic, development, and health assistance sent for the Venezuelan crisis to more than $1.9 billion since 2019. This includes food assistance, emergency shelter, access to healthcare, water, sanitation, and hygiene supplies, COVID-19 support, protection for vulnerable groups including women, children, assistance to democratic actors within Venezuela. As we can see, socialism has not worked in Venezuela. It's not worked anywhere else. Venezuela would not be here if it weren't for the United States. We are sending $1.9 billion to Venezuela just to support them so that way they can even survive in Venezuela. If we weren't sending them, it would not be a country. In my humble opinion, I do not think that it would be a country. But the simple fact of these people are already living in poverty and starvation and in absolute miserable conditions with the $1.9 billion sent to Venezuela. That is kind of what a socialist society would look like. And if you ask me, I don't live in New York, but I don't want that in my country. And I don't think that any of us would want that in our country. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe. We're trying to hit 500 subscribers by New Year's. That would be awesome. Go follow me on Instagram at RealLoganKelly. It'd be awesome for you guys to do. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys next time.